Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Find a living in fisheries. The UAS Fisheries Technology Program offers online study from anywhere in Alaska, plus labs and workshops in many Alaska towns.
Is most likely a chum.
Find your living without leaving where you are. Fisheries Technology from UAS.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thanks again for joining us for this Monday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Dave Percy. On the, a lot of rain fell Anchorage today, and as of about 3 p.m., roughly an inch, give or take, across the Anchorage area. And for June, the record one-day rainfall total occurred in 1962. That was 1.62 inches, so we're probably going to be in third place by the time it stops raining later on this evening, but probably won't likely make that 1.25 inches unless some pretty good showers fall for a period of time right over the observation site. And kind of the same thing going on back 2 years ago in 2014 when we picked up nearly 0.7 of an inch. Moving on to the fire danger map. Pretty extreme area here over the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta. Been under the influence and will be at least through tomorrow of higher pressure aloft, kind of building across the Bering Sea from the Russian Far East and keeping extreme fire danger or high fire dangers here up to the north into the Kobuk, on into the Noatak Valley and over the central Seward Peninsula. Just a couple of spots here, one over the Copper River Basin and over the eastern Alaska Range. Otherwise, with all the rain falling from the Yukon across the Tanana Valley and down in south central, pretty much under high on the fire dangers. On the satellite today, there's all the clouds that brought the rainfall in, kind of an upper level trough digging down, actually cutting off into a low sent over the Alaska Range this afternoon. Clouds extending up to the northeast, and behind that, northerly flow, drier, especially south of the Brooks Range there. Made for a lot of sunshine here out in the west, precipitation free. A little bit of moisture coming southward onto the western Arctic coast, mainly around Wainwright. So, saw a little bit of light rain this afternoon, nothing much, and some showers over the Copper River Basin, and a lot of clouds here streaming northeastward on that southwest flow, both at the surface and aloft, coming around higher pressure down to the south there. Keeping the showers, some scattered showers in over the northern panhandle and some variable clouds, and basically dry down to the south with warmer temperatures where there was more sunshine. Out to the west, got a couple of systems out here. One kind of pushing back to the northwest there, bringing some rain and fog to the western Aleutians, and then a stronger system down here moving up will bring heavier rain and probably wind with it as it swings up later tonight and tomorrow. Otherwise, there's a front out there roughly in this position at about midday today. Bering Sea still with the light winds and higher pressure at the surface through here, building just about all the way down to the coastline. So light winds, areas of low clouds and fog, especially south of St. Lawrence Island. They had generally sunny skies today. On up through the Bering Strait northwest interior, looking pretty good. Some clouds down to the Brooks Range, but south of there, lots of sunshine, dry conditions, scattered showers over the Alaska Peninsula. And then the moderate rainfall that occurred across the Kenai Peninsula up into the Susitna Valley, where anywhere from 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch or more fell from Palmer to Wasilla, northward up to Talkeetna, where they picked about a little over 1/2 inch there at Talkeetna, and about 4/10 of an inch or up to 1/2 inch falling at Fairbanks. The Tanana Valley, Eagle Airport had a 1/4 of an inch of rain. That's in the 24-hour period ending this afternoon. And scattered showers over the Copper River Basin. A few showers here over the northern southeast coast, southwest flow, keeping most of the moisture up to the north there and holding that shower chance for the next at least 24 hours there over the northern southeast coast. Drier conditions, more sunshine, temperatures in the mid-60s in some locations down in that area. And for tonight, look for a trough to bring more clouds and areas of light rain, fog, and drizzle, but amounts will be quite light there from the central Arctic coast all the way down. Could see a few showers pop up over the Seward Peninsula, mainly west, possibly the Noatak Valley, but again, these amounts will be quite light and more of an increase in the cloud cover there, maybe some fog along the coast. Otherwise fair, still offshore flow, keeping it VFR out along the coastline or beyond there. Mostly fair skies, southwest interior right up into the probably the Koyukuk Valley, drying out over the upper Yukon. Showers decreasing tonight here, especially Tanana Valley area as well as northern Cook Inlet. Most of the moisture thunderstorms which are occurring this afternoon along the western Alaska Range. Some of those already getting out over the southern Cook Inlet area, and that'll probably drop on down into Kodiak Island. Chance of thunderstorms there are isolated. Back up into the southern inlet this evening. Showers over the Kenai Peninsula decreasing throughout the night. Same thing for the North Gulf Coast, and just some isolated activity there over the Copper River Basin. And again, moisture keeping the shower chances in across the northern southeast coast. Just a risk of an isolated shower down south. And then that next stronger frontal system bringing the rain and wind up mainly into the central Aleutians tonight and toward tomorrow morning, but light winds again, areas of low clouds and fog, Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, right up in toward the Bering Strait. And then for tomorrow, still, you just can't lose that shower chance here over the northern panhandle, but should be a pretty nice day over the central and southern areas where there'll be more sunshine and warmer temperatures. Look for some lingering showers here at the southern Kenai Peninsula, Kamishak Bay, isolated thunderstorms possible in the afternoon. Kodiak Island, still a few showers around, and less shower activity, more sunshine here for the Tanana Valley, also south central Alaska, but look for mainly mountain showers, isolated thunderstorms to develop in the afternoon. Pretty good day for the Copper River Basin, just a risk of a shower there. Fair up here over the north interior. Now, weak trough slides a little bit of moisture over to the eastern Arctic coast, otherwise dry back to the west, possibly a shower there over the Noatak Valley, and low clouds and fog, high pressure here over the eastern Bering Sea. Winds will continue light, especially for the Alaska Peninsula as well, and that front weakens considerably, but spreads a little moisture mostly in toward Nikolsky, just a slight chance pushing into the Unalaska area during the day tomorrow. And the stronger part of this front now lifting north of the Aleutians, so rain changes to showers with diminishing winds in that area. And the outlook for Wednesday, that front that really doesn't make much more eastward progress, fairly weak, still a chance of areas of light rain and fog, drizzle, that sort of thing. IFR, eastern Aleutians here, especially for the Pribilofs, definitely clouds, probably IFR at times there, as well as on Wednesday. Lots of showers back to the west with a low center just south of the western Aleutians. Then we've got this cold front pushing eastward here, upper level flow westerly across the northern interior. So this will kind of drop down, bring a band of precipitation with it, but this portion's trailing edge really weakens. Just probably clouds, a risk of a few showers with that on Wednesday. South of the Alaska Range, mostly sunny. Susitna Valley on down to Kodiak Island. Should see lots of sunshine, warmer temperatures. Same thing for the Copper River Basin. And this system slides off to the southeast, so will not affect the southeast coast at all, but that's going to allow some of this shower activity or thunderstorm activity to kind of slip in across the border there to affect mainly Hyder and Stewart, with maybe a chance of some showers. Otherwise, should have a partly sunny day and dry for the remainder of the panhandle. And for temperatures this afternoon down that way, mid to upper 50s here in the north, 50s all the way down. Klawock 55, but some sunshine. Metlakatla, Annette, Ketchikan, all in the 60s today. Same thing for Stewart. cooler 52 at Yakutat, just 46 degrees in Cordova this afternoon, 48 in Whittier, and Kenai up to 52, same thing in Homer. Anchorage is right around 50, 48 up at Talkeetna, 59 at Gulkana. Kodiak had 57, and mid-50s to lower 60s here across the Tanana Valley areas, with 45 up at Fort Yukon. The Brooks Range saw 37 at Anatuvik. Over at Arctic Village, they were about 10 degrees warmer, but kind of a contrast here over the North Slope with Umiat at 47, 39 at Dead Horse, but Nuiqsut, a little ways inland, up to 44, and Kaktovik 33, but lower to mid-40s here all the way out to the Arctic coast, 50 degrees at Cape Lisburne, and 59 at Noatak, and the warmest temperature in the state occurred at Quartz Creek or Granite Creek here in the central Seward Peninsula was 71, 51 at Nome, 48 at Wales with Teller at 50, 55 Savunga, and 50s to lower to mid-60s here with 62 at Holy Cross, Caltag 63, 63 also at St. Mary's with Amonic at 57, Unalakleet 54, and 60s right out to the coastline, Tuksuk Bay and Kipnuk into the lower 60s today, but Makoriak there on Nunivak Island just 48 degrees. Otherwise, we had 65 in Bethel, lower 50s for the Pribilofs, 40s for the Aleutians, and mostly 50s here for the Alaska Peninsula, except Chignik pushed up to 61. Togiak had 67, and Dillingham 69, and Klawak was up to 69 also. And for the lows tonight, 40s for the southeast coast, 40s southern Alaska to near 50, maybe upper 40s to near 50 here in the southwest, 40s northward, turn into 30s for the north slope and the Arctic coast. Highs for tomorrow, 60s to lower to maybe even mid-70s here over the southwest interior, and back into the mid-60s across much of the Tanana Valley, 60s up to the south slopes of the Brooks Range there, and the Susitna Valley down toward Palmer, maybe even Anchorage back into the lower 60s, and cooler off to the east, and southern southeast coast may rise into the lower 60s again, otherwise 50s. And for flying weather tomorrow morning, IFR with that moisture approaching the western Arctic coast there. Pretty good, mostly VFR here through the western central interior. Morning marginal stuff there along the Alaska Range. Also here over the east and northeast. IFR, northern panhandle, and Prince William Sound, Bering Sea. Of course, areas of IFR, but staying VFR here along the coast up to the Bering Strait where it becomes marginal. And then for the afternoon, look for some of that marginal stuff to slip down toward St. Lawrence Island. IFR spreading eastward with that frontal system approaching Nikolsky, extending back to the west. Marginal VFR also the Gulf of Alaska, northern panhandle back into Prince William Sound. VFR here through the interior. Anatuvik looks VFR at this time, same forecast for Radigan. Lake Clark and Merrill, good VFR. Or becoming VFR for Windy, starting out marginal. Starting out marginal as well for Windy, Isabel VFR, Mentasta VFR, and Tanita VFR. Portage starting out with some IFR, especially on the eastern entrance, becoming marginal, improving throughout the day. And Chilkoot and White, same trend. Lowest conditions will probably be found during the morning hours, gradually improving through the day to VFR. Freezing levels 8 to 10,000 feet here across the northern Bering Sea. Western interior, again, upper level ridging here, kind of building eastward into the southwest or the western areas there, and about 6,000 feet here over the eastern half of the state, Gulf of Alaska, on in toward the Panhandle. Icing threats, really nothing significant tomorrow anywhere except way out west with the incoming moisture here over the western Aleutians with that next frontal system above about 6,000 feet. Upper level wind flow chart, the low that's developing over the western Alaska Range this afternoon slips down toward Kodiak Island to about this position tomorrow afternoon. Higher pressure kind of ridging in to the southwest interior. That will continue to build into the central interior and south central Alaska for probably the remainder of the week. So looking pretty dry here, at least through Friday or longer. Southerly winds at about 70 knots over the southern southeast coast. And for 9,000 feet, strongest winds out here with this system, 35 to 45 knots across the Aleutians into the Bering Sea. Lighter westerlies, 10 to 15. no wind here over southern Alaska, and maybe some 20 knots coming around this low center southeast of Kodiak Island. Very light winds again with a ridging pattern here over the panhandle. No wind, southern Alaska, westerlies 10 to 15, pick up to 25 knots there for the central Arctic coast. High pressure, light winds, eastern Bering Sea and the west coast. And then those stronger winds of that storm system there over the western Aleutians, 20 to 25 up to 40 knots coming across the central Aleutians in that area. Turbulence-wise, look for moderate chop, light to isolated moderate chop here approaching the eastern Aleutians, but probably not quite making it till tomorrow evening. And then with more wind, northeasterlies at 30 to 40 knots out there. Could see some moderate chop for the Shimiat 2 area and maybe some mechanical turbulence here for the central and eastern Arctic coast. And after the break, hangar flying, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
Good evening. I'm Harry Keeling, and on behalf of the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and Alaska Public Media, welcome to Hangar Flying. We've had our guest, Colonel Lars Hubert, on recently. We talked about his experience with foreign military sales, but tonight I wanted to just talk about some of the airplanes that he's flown. Lars is the Vice Commander of 11th Air Force at Elmendorf, but a very experienced aviator. So it's good to have him back on the program. Lars, welcome back.
Thanks, good to be back.
So, very unusual career. You flew the 4-engine C-130, you flew the single-engine, single-seat F-16, and you were instructor in the T-6.
Right.
So talk about those three airplanes, what you liked and what was your favorite thing. And
Sure. Vastly different airplanes, as you well know. After pilot training, flying the T-37, T-38. So going from a T-38, a supersonic trainer, looks like a Coke bottle, had little tiny wings. Moving to the C-130, which is at over 130-foot wingspan, 4 engines, a big crew. We had anywhere from 5 to about 7 folks on the airplane. Completely different aspect of it. Really the first thing I noticed was I was flying in the right seat, the co-pilot seat, where I'm now flying with a yoke rather than a stick. That made a big difference. I couldn't fly upside down anymore. It was more or less straight and level. 60 degrees of bank was the maximum that we had. But I tell you, it was a very nimble airplane, believe it or not, for as big as it was. They even had to dumb down the ailerons. They used to have twice the hydraulic pressure in the ailerons. Now it was less than that. They used to fly close formation in the C-130. I'm not sure if you knew that or not. The 4 Horsemen is what they were called back then. But a great airplane, and I flew all over the world in that airplane. Really doing some typical trash hauling missions, as we called them. I hit every continent with the exception of Australia and Antarctica in the C-130.
so what was the most challenging mission? Was it assault strips or what?
Yeah, I would say so. Typically, it's your night assault landing was probably the most challenging that we had. So flying into a black hole somewhere, typically in a foreign country, made it pretty challenging. At the time that I was flying, we had just started getting NVGs in the airplane, but we couldn't land with them. So now what you're looking at is potentially flying into a black hole that had 4 lights, which is your touchdown zone, and 1 light on the far end of the 3,000-foot long strip, which was marking your end of the runway. And that was what you had to land with. So it made it fun and interesting, for sure.
So then you went to the single-engine F-16.
Yes. Again, vastly different. So now I'm back to a stick, but now the stick's not in the middle, stick's off to the side. Digital flight controls, so you have 1/4 of inch deflection is maximum that you get out of the airplane. Obviously went a lot faster. Visibility was definitely much more improved. And the missions are vastly different. So it was awesome to finally get in an airplane that I could fly upside down again and really feel like a bird, honestly.
The one thing you would have missed in the C-130 is close formation. It take much time to get back into that groove?
You know, it didn't. As far as formation flying, it came back, for me at least, came back fairly quickly. I did have several folks that asked me the question, was it hard to make the transition from a C-130 to an F-16? And for different reasons, yes and no. The no part really comes into, well, do you have to think faster? Well, when you're flying an airplane, it's all relative, right? So if you're flying a C-130 at 200 knots, you plan for, hey, I'm going to land at this airfield, probably a lot closer. In an F-16, you got to do a lot farther out because you're flying a lot faster. But it's still all relative. You still have the same amount of time to think about it and react to it. So it is a little bit different.
So what about the T6?
T6, Great airplane. It's our primary trainer now. It's been that way for the past about 10 years. Really is all that we're looking at. Great airplane, tandem seating, so student in the front and instructor pilot in the back in his own separate cockpit. Another very maneuverable airplane, and unlike most prop airplanes where you have to do a lot of rudder play, the T6 actually had its own rudder trim. So depending upon where you set the power lever, gives you obviously different torque settings where it might kick the tail around, but it would compensate for that. The airplane would
Automatically?
Automatically.
Really?
Yeah, it was nice.
Huh.
Wasn't 100%, but it was pretty nice.
So back to the F-16. What was the toughest thing, the toughest mission?
Toughest thing in the F-16. I got to fly Block 50s, which is really we call them SEAD aircraft, suppression of enemy air defenses, or force protection aircraft. Really, we were responsible for any of the enemy air defenses that were coming up at them, to be able to take care of them, being able to give instructions to the strike aircraft that are coming in, whether that's a surface-to-air threat for them to avoid, or even take care of an air-to-air threat that was coming in. So pretty diverse mission, and it was pretty difficult, where you were really the last guy in the planning room to put all your mission materials together, know where everybody is, and game plan it out.
Wow. Well, again, we've run out of time, but what I want to do is this. You've talked about some very interesting information about foreign military sales, flying with some of our allies. You've talked about flying some pretty current and pretty interesting airplanes. Right. What I want to do is pull it together next time. Talk a little bit about your experience with flying safety and your perspective on that in today's Air Force.
Sounds good.
So thanks for being on the program tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed tonight's program. We'll get Lars back on here to talk a little bit about flying in Alaska and some of the challenges the Air Force faces. Until then, fly safe.
Welcome back. Well, virtually no ice here, just a couple of spots there by St. Lawrence Island up to the Bering Strait, and then of course some stuff hanging in along the Russian coast. Also some areas of ice on the northern shore of the Seward Peninsula back in toward Kotzebue Sound, but a big open area out here pushing up into the Chukchi Sea even more. Quite an area open water here on the western coast, west-northwest of Barrow, and back over this way. And for the coastal forecast, northwesterlies 10 to 15 knots to the south coast tomorrow. Small craft advisories, though, out for Clarence Strait. 15 knots for Stevens Passage. South increasing to 20 knots with 4-foot seas for Lynn Canal. South to southwest, quite light tomorrow at about 10 knots for the north coast. Then on Wednesday, a very northwest wind pattern takes hold. Under small craft advisory levels, just 20 knots there with 5 to 6 foot seas the entire length of the coastline. That same wind pattern also for Clarence Strait, a little lighter in Stevens Passage, north winds 15 for Lynn Canal. And for Prince William Sound and Cook Inlet, light southwesterlies tomorrow with 2 to 3 foot seas. Kamishak Bay south at about 15, variable to northeast for Shelikof Strait. Northeast 15 here, Kodiak Island. Easterlies at 15 knots for the Barrens and the North Gulf Coast with 5-foot seas. Then for Wednesday, no change here for the inlet or for Prince William Sound. Variable light winds, westerlies 15 to 20 knots for the North Gulf Coast, west 15 for the Barren Islands down across Kodiak Island, except 20 knots, except southwest 15 for Shelikof Strait. Light winds for Kamishak Bay. And for Bristol Bay, westerlies at about 10, pretty light. Maybe 15 knot westerlies here for the Alaska Peninsula. Seas pretty slight, 3 to 5 feet, all the way up to Sitkinak. And then for Wednesday, a little bit of an increase in the winds, not much, but swinging around to the southeast, picking up to 15 to 20 for the peninsula. Light winds continue for Bristol Bay. And for the eastern Aleutians, south to southeast, 15 knots. That front pushing eastward, we'll have some small craft advisories heading in toward Nikolsky during the afternoon and into the evening. Brisker winds here for the central Aleutians, turning east to northeast, all at 30 knots. And then for Wednesday, still carrying some small crafts out here west of Adak, otherwise central Aleutians south to southeast at 20 with 6 to 7 foot seas. And that front still stalled out here, much weaker, but still could kick up 20 knot winds out of the south-southeast across Unalaska Island. And then for the Pribilofs tomorrow, easterlies at 10 knots, westerlies here for St. Matthew Island about 15, north 20 for St. Lawrence Island, light northwest breeze for the southwest coast. And then for Wednesday, pick those winds up 25 knots. That's good for small craft advisories there for St. Lawrence Islands, with seas building to 6 feet. Westerlies just 5 to 10 knots here for the southwest coast, with 2 to 3 foot seas. Southeast, maybe up to 15 for the Pribilofs. More easterly here for the northern Bering Sea. And small or brisk wind or small craft advisories for the eastern Arctic coast, eastern Beaufort Sea coastline at 25 knots right out of the west. A little lighter for the central coast. Northwest, 15 to 20 on the west side. Wales to Cape Thompson, north 15. And then for Wednesday, those pick up to 20 knots and lighter here for these western capes. Otherwise, westerly winds 20, increasing to 25 knots on the central coast, and then dropping back down to 20 knots toward demarcation point with 4 to 5 foot seas. And for tonight again, thunderstorm chances push into southern Cook Inlet, western Alaska Range, maybe even some thunderstorm activity making it into Kodiak Island. Less of a risk over the Kenai Peninsula, otherwise decreasing showers here across the Tanana Valley, right down into south central Alaska, North Gulf Coast. Still a chance of showers for the Panhandle. And this trough, mostly clouds, maybe some light precipitation as it drops in from the northwest, which tomorrow kind of really washes out. Just a band of clouds is all that's left with it. And a stronger trough back up here moves pretty quickly down from the northwest and moves to about this position, bringing a narrow band of light precipitation with it, keeping it cloudy and showery in the central Tanana Valley, but mostly sunny southern Alaska with warmer temperatures, and a partly sunny day in store for the Panhandle. Out to the west, well, we've got high pressure here, picking those northeast winds up through the Bering Strait to St. Lawrence Island, and a weakening front keeps clouds and moisture, IFR conditions from the eastern Aleutians, False Pass, right up across the Pribilof Islands. Well, that's a look at the weather for tonight. Thanks for joining us.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.